Have you ever felt it? A quiet, persistent whisper in the stillness of the early morning or the late hours of the night. A sense that the life you are currently living, as good as it may be, is only a fraction of the life you were meant to live. It's not a feeling of ingratitude, but a profound and often unsettling sense of untapped potential. It's the feeling of a grander, more vibrant, more courageous version of yourself waiting just beyond the veil of your daily routines, your ingrained habits, and your comfortable fears. Why is this feeling so universal? In an age of unprecedented connection and opportunity, we seem to be more disconnected from our own inner power than ever before. We scroll for the highlight reels of others, feeling the subtle pang of comparison, wondering why our own lives don't feel as epic, as meaningful. We are caught in a current of obligations, expectations, and digital noise, a relentless tide that pulls us away from the shores of our own deepest truths. We become so busy managing the details of our survival that we forget the art of our existence. This fundamental human ache, this yearning for a life of greater impact, joy, and meaning, is a very question that ignited a lifelong obsession for a man named Robin Sharma. He wasn't a philosopher in an ivory tower or a guru on a mountaintop. He was someone who felt this disconnect with excruciating clarity, and instead of ignoring it, he chose to embark on a quest to find a real, tangible, and actionable answer. This, then, is not just an exploration of his ideas, but a journey into the heart of that quest, a journey to uncover a practical blueprint for becoming a hero in the one story that matters most, your own. To understand the power of the manifesto Robin Sharma would eventually write, you must first understand the world he was desperate to escape. Imagine a young man, sharp and ambitious, navigating the hallowed mahogany panel halls of the legal world. As a litigation lawyer, he had achieved everything society tells us to strive for: the prestigious title, the impressive salary, the respect of his peers. He had checked all the boxes. His days were a whirlwind of intellectual combat, of meticulously crafted arguments and high-stakes courtroom battles. He was, by all external measures, a resounding success. But inside, a creeping hollowness was beginning to take root. The man he saw in the mirror each morning felt increasingly like a stranger, a well-dressed actor playing a part he no longer believed in. The adversarial nature of his work, which demanded he live in a world of conflict and skepticism, began to erode his natural optimism and joy. He felt his spirit withering under the fluorescent lights of his office. He was living a life that looked good on paper, but felt empty in his soul. This wasn't a sudden crisis, but a slow, suffocating realization that the ladder of success he had climbed so diligently was leaning against the wrong wall entirely. He was winning a game he didn't even want to be playing. The breaking point arrived not with a bang, but with a profound and terrifying moment of self-interrogation. He asked himself a simple, devastating question. If this is what success feels like, what is the point of it all? The answer that echoed back from the depths of his being was a deafening silence. He realized he was becoming what he called a hollow man, rich in material possessions, but bankrupt in purpose and fulfillment. It was a spiritual and existential crisis of the highest order. So he made a choice that seemed like madness to everyone around him. He walked away. He resigned to his lucrative career, trading the security of a six-figure salary for the terrifying uncertainty of a blank page. His quest for answers wasn't born in comfort. It was born from desperation. His first foray into sharing his discoveries was anything but glamorous. He self-published his first book, not with a major publishing deal, but at a local Kinko's copy shop. He became his own marketing department, selling copies out of the trunk of his car. Speaking to anyone who would listen, this gritty, unvarnished origin story is critical because it reveals the immense personal stakes involved. He had to burn the ships of his old life to create the space for a new one to emerge. He wasn't just writing about a theory. He was living his own experiment, desperately trying to architect a life of meaning from the ashes of a life of mere success. This raw, humbling beginning was a crucible in which the principles of the everyday hero were first forged. The first major breakthrough on this journey did not come from a mystical vision or a singular, earth-shattering epiphany. It was far more practical, rooted in the meticulous study of the very people who seemed to have solved the puzzle of a meaningful and productive life. Sharma became a student of mastery, devouring the biographies of great artists, groundbreaking scientists, iconic entrepreneurs, and moral leaders. He was searching for a common thread, a pattern in the tapestry of their extraordinary lives. And he found it not in their innate genius or their fortunate circumstances, but in a place most of us overlook, the first hour of their day. He discovered that while the rest of the world was hitting the snooze button, the most effective and fulfilled people on the planet were already up, quietly and deliberately laying the foundation for a masterpiece day. They weren't just morning people. They were masters of a sacred, personal ritual. This insight was a genesis of what would become his world-famous 5 a.m. club concept, the first core principle of personal heroism. The idea is that victory is claimed in the silent hour before dawn, and he codified this into a simple yet profoundly powerful framework, the 20/20/20 formula. The first 20 minutes, from 5 to 5:20 a.m., are dedicated to intense movement. This isn't a leisurely stroll. It's about making yourself sweat. The purpose is profoundly biological. This vigorous exercise flushes the brain of cortisol, the hormone of fear and stress that accumulates during sleep. Simultaneously, it elevates dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters of motivation and happiness, and releases a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally repairs brain cells and accelerates learning. It's not just a workout. It's a pharmaceutical-grade priming of your neurochemistry for peak performance and positivity. You are physiologically rewiring yourself to be less fearful and more focused before anyone else has even had their coffee. The second 20-minute block, from 5:20 to 5:40 a.m., is for deep reflection. This is when you turn off the noise of the world and tune into the signal of your own soul. For some, this is meditation. For others, it's journaling, writing down your ambitions, your gratitude, your fears. Or it could be a time for prayer or quiet contemplation. The goal is to gain clarity, to set your intentions for the day ahead, to remind yourself of your core values and your most important goals. It's the equivalent of a pilot conducting a meticulous pre-flight check before takeoff. Instead of stumbling into your day reactively, you are consciously and deliberately choosing who you want to be and what you want to create. The final 20 minutes, from 5:40 to 6 a.m., are dedicated to growth. This is the time to feed your mind. Read a book by a master in your field. Listen to an insightful podcast. Take an online course. Learn a new language. You are embracing the principle of Kaizen, constant and never-ending improvement. By investing in your own knowledge and skills first thing in the morning, you create a compounding effect of wisdom over time. This first principle was a direct antidote to the feeling of powerlessness that Sharma had felt in his own life and that he saw all around him. The sense of being stuck, he realized, is often a symptom of a life lived on defense, constantly reacting to incoming emails, demands, and distractions. The 5 a.m. routine is a declaration of sovereignty. It is the act of seizing control of the one part of the day that is truly yours and using to build the physical, mental, and spiritual fortitude needed to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. But as this powerful idea began to spread, Sharma noticed a new, more subtle problem emerging. People were adopting the 5 a.m. routine, and their productivity was soaring. They were getting more done by 9 a.m. than most people get done in a week. They were disciplined, focused, and efficient. Yet, for some, that old feeling of hollowness began to creep back in. They had become hyper-effective productivity machines, but they were still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. The routine, without a deeper purpose, could simply become another gilded cage, a more optimized version of the same empty life. This realization forced Sharma to go deeper, to understand that heroism isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become in the process. He understood that true growth, the kind that fills the soul, doesn't happen in the comfort of a well-oiled routine. It happens when we voluntarily step into the fire of our fears. This led to a second great discovery, the principle of intentionally embracing discomfort, which he encapsulated in a powerful metaphor he called visiting Gethsemane. In its biblical context, Gethsemane was a garden where Jesus went to pray on the night before his crucifixion, a place of immense anguish and trial where he confronted his deepest fears and committed to his destiny. Sharma repurposed this idea to represent any place, project, or conversation that we actively avoid because it scares us. Your Gethsemane might be the difficult conversation you need to have with a loved one, the public speaking engagement you dread, the ambitious creative project you're afraid to start, or the physical challenge that pushes your body to its absolute limit. It is the gym for your character. While the 5 a.m. routine builds your energy and focus, it is a deliberate and regular journey into your personal Gethsemane that forges your courage, resilience, and wisdom. This principle is illustrated not in the lives of the famous, but in the quiet dignity of ordinary people choosing to do hard things. Sharma tells the story of an elderly street sweeper he met who, instead of seeing his job as menial, treated his work as a sacred art form. His Gethsemane was a daily battle against cynicism, the choice to bring excellence and pride to a task others dismissed. By doing so, he transformed his work into a masterpiece and his life into a testament of purpose. He found heroism not by changing his job, but by changing his relationship to its inherent difficulty. Another example is the entrepreneur who, despite her success, felt stagnant. She adopted the practice of taking on one project every quarter that absolutely terrified her. These projects pushed her to the edge of her capabilities, forcing her to learn, adapt, and grow in ways she never would have in her comfort zone. Her fear became her compass, pointing her toward the next stage of her evolution. The deeper truth Sharma uncovered is that a life devoid of meaningful struggle is a life devoid of meaning. We are neurologically wired to grow through adversity. When we avoid discomfort, our courage muscles atrophy. We become fragile, easily swayed by minor setbacks. But when we intentionally seek out the right kind of struggle, the challenges that align with our values and push us toward our goals, we build an unbreakable inner core. This principle complicates the simple pursuit of productivity. It reveals that the goal isn't an easy life, but a life where we are strong enough to handle the hard parts with grace and courage. It answers the why that the 5 a.m. routine alone could not. We build our energy in the morning not just to be more efficient, but to have the fortitude to face the Gethsemanes that will ultimately define us. So we have two powerful, seemingly distinct forces at play. On one hand, the quiet, consistent discipline of a morning ritual that builds energy and focus. On the other, the courageous, voluntary embrace of hardship that forges character and resilience. For a time, these might appear to be separate strategies for a better life. But as Sharma continued his research, observing the highest performers across every imaginable domain, he saw that they weren't just doing these two things in isolation. They were weaving them together into a seamless, dynamic rhythm. This was a grand synthesis, the unifying aha moment where all the pieces clicked into place. He called it the twin cycles of elite performance and deep recovery. The profound insight was that true, sustainable greatness is not a product of relentless, linear effort. It's not about being on 24/7. That is a fast track to burnout, mediocrity, and misery. Instead, heroism and world-class mastery are born from an oscillation, a pulse that beats between periods of intense, laser-focused work and periods of deliberate, profound rest and renewal. Think of the greatest athletes in the world. Their training regimens are brutal and demanding, pushing them to their absolute limits. This is their high excellence cycle. But their coaches and physiologists are equally obsessed with their recovery, their sleep, their nutrition, their time off. This is their deep refueling cycle. They understand a fundamental law of nature. Growth happens not during the stress, but in the rest that follows. A muscle is torn in the gym, but it is rebuilt stronger during sleep. The same principle applies to our minds, our creativity, and our spirits. The everyday hero architects their life around this rhythm. They use the energy from their morning routine to dive into their Gethsemanes, to perform their most important work with intense, undistracted focus. They work like a lion, sprinting with total commitment, then resting completely. They don't multitask. They don't dilute their attention. When they are in the high excellence cycle, they are fully present, producing work at the highest level of their ability. But just as consciously, they schedule and honor periods of deep refueling. This isn't just about sleeping more or taking a vacation once a year. It's about building recovery rituals into the fabric of your day and week. It could be a 60-minute walk in nature without your phone. It could be a weekly artist date, a massage, or time spent in complete silence. It is any activity that refills your creative, emotional, and spiritual wells. This grand idea fundamentally reframes the initial problem of feeling stuck. We are not stuck because we lack talent or ambition. We are stuck because we are trying to sprint a marathon. We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle and worships the altar of busyness, failing to understand that the very source of our best work and deepest joy lies in the restorative power of rest. The grand synthesis is that the morning routine is the engine and embracing hardship is the journey, but the twin cycles are the map that ensures you reach your destination without breaking down. It connects ambition with sanity, productivity with passion, and a life of high achievement with a life of deep and abiding peace. Our journey through this philosophy began with a universal question, a quiet ache for a life of greater meaning. We walked alongside a litigation lawyer who felt that ache so acutely that he gave up a world of external success to find internal truth. His quest led him first to a profound discovery. That mastery of your life begins with mastery of your morning, by building a foundation of energy and focus while the world sleeps. But he soon realized that discipline without a purpose was a hollow victory. This pushed him to a deeper truth, that our character is not forged in comfort, but in the fires of the challenges we voluntarily embrace, our personal Gethsemanes. Finally, we arrive at the grand, unifying insight that these forces are not separate, but are part of a sacred, life-giving rhythm. The ultimate art of living is to oscillate between cycles of intense, world-class performance and periods of deep, soulful recovery. This is the blueprint. It is not a secret reserved for the gifted few. It is a practical, actionable methodology for anyone willing to do the work. The ideas we've explored today are powerful, but understanding is only the first step. The true magic happens when knowledge is translated into action. The whisper you feel inside you, that sense of your own untapped potential, is not a flight of fancy. It is a calling. It is your heroic self, inviting you to step onto a bigger stage. The path to answering that call is not paved with one grand, dramatic gesture, but with 1,000 small, courageous choices made day after day. It's the choice to get up when the alarm rings, the choice to face the conversation you've been avoiding, the choice to rest when your body and soul demand it. The world has enough critics and spectators. What it desperately needs is more everyday heroes, people who infuse their work with excellence, who treat others with kindness, who face their fears with grace, and who, by the simple power of their example, remind us of what is possible. If this journey has resonated with you, if it has stirred that heroic impulse within you, then I invite you to make commitment, not to a video or a channel, but to yourself. Joining this community by subscribing is more than just a click. It is a declaration. It is you raising your hand and saying, I am ready to answer call. It is a commitment to begin the most important work of your life, the work of activating the hero within,